What's up, gamers, and welcome to the HitPoints first episode of Gaming Book Club. I am Donnie K, and I'm joined by the wonderful Brandon. We are here to talk about HellBlade, Senuas Sacrifice. What's up, Brandon?
Not much. So in case you missed it, this is going to be a series that we do each week, except for on the first week of the month when the new Humble Monthlies roll out. But every other week of the month, we're going to be doing a book club where we take a game from either the Humble Bundle, from the Xbox Game Pass, or just a game that we are both looking forward to and want to play, and we're excited to play. We're going to take one of those games. We're going to take a deep dive into them, discuss them, play them, share our thoughts on them, cry a little bit together, love a little bit together, grow a little bit together. That's what we're here to do.
And of course, we will always invite you guys to play these games with us, telling you the week before what we will be playing next week.
Before we even get started here, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right here. If you have not played HellBlade, Senuas Sacrifice, stop what you're doing. Don't watch this video unless you want it to get spoiled for you. Stop this video, go play HellBlade, come back to us.
Full spoilers on a 2-year-old game.
Full spoilers. We're going full out spoilers here. So pause the video, go play the game, come back. One sitting. I dare you. Double dog dare you. Don't do that.
It's just a day of work. How long to beat.com tells me it takes 7 to 8 hours to beat.
That sounds about accurate, unless you're me and you get stuck on puzzles easily. All right. So Donnie, we started playing this game together. We started and we did an hour and a half or so for our first impressions video, because this was part of the Humble Monthly for July of 2019. And we had some thoughts at that point. I don't know if you want to recap those real quick.
Essentially, a pretty decent game, deserving of the independent AAA title that people are always throwing around.
So I have only seen that thrown around on their actual website. I think they're the ones touting that.
Really? I don't know. I've always seen it in like the reviews and stuff when it was first.
Gotcha.
First thing. That's funny though. That means a little less to me now that I know that.
Yeah, I don't know.
They kind of coined that for themselves.
I don't know if they saw the reviews and like threw it into their branding, or if they threw it into their branding and thus the reviews picked up on it. I'm not sure which one, but I saw that on their website and I was like, that's funny. That's good.
I mean, it makes it mean a little less to me. So anyways, pretty good game, stunning visuals and really good audio design, but we weren't so hot on the puzzles and some of the other gameplay elements. How do we feel now, 8 hours later?
So 8 hours later, my thoughts have kind of switched a little bit. So initially I was thinking the visuals are great, the combat's good, the puzzles suck, right? Further we got into the game, I kind of started to skew the other way. The actual combat was good, but thanks to like just getting the same enemies thrown at you the entire course of the game, the little bit of variance in the puzzles was kind of like welcome. Whereas, getting deer antler guy 6 times in a row with big shield guy with big hammer guy, like.
Yeah, that was kind of the name of the game in Senua, wasn't it? The same thing, no matter like combat, gameplay, puzzles, whatever, repeated just kind of over and over.
Yeah, but at least the puzzles, they like tweaked them a little bit, right? There were new elements
they were different every time. Right.
Like the overall thing was the same. Like it was like line up the symbols or find the symbol hidden in the environment. Like that was like the 2 versions of the puzzles. But like they would add little stuff into them. Like, okay, now you're being chased by a guy. All right, this time you've got to like jump back and forth between this light world and this dark world. Bridges and stuff that you have to lower. You have to like find your way through this maze. There was stuff to it, right?
Random gates that you have to try to walk through until the puzzle solves itself.
So that was our frustration with the first part of the game. Did you struggle with the puzzles going forward in the game?
Not as much as that first time. I kind of remember yesterday when you were playing, I was kind of just listening and you were saying how something kind of clicked and they started to make sense. And I very much had a similar moment.
So for me, what happened is we're talking about Valraven's Keep, and that's the first one of, I don't know if you have to go to that area first or if you can go to Surtur's Domain first, because it's like basically you hit this gate and you have to open 2 sub gates to like unlock the main gate, right? You have to go through these 2 other gates, beat a boss, and that like is a key, like 1/2 of the key to unlock the main gate, right?
Right.
But the one that me specifically, and I think it's the one we both played through on our first impressions, Valraven's Keep. There's this element in those puzzles where there's these gates, these like little mini gates. They're like little half circles that protrude from the ground. They're very hard to miss. And those gates, when you walk through them, and you can see it when you like look through them without actually walking through them. If you're like paying attention, they change elements of the environment, right? And so like we'd figured that part out. We knew those gates were significant. What we didn't know is that there's also a second set of gates that does the exact same goddamn thing, where it's just two trees with a fucking skull strung between the two of them, like a deer skull strung between the two of them. Those were
Yeah,
also
so they don't even look as important, but they are just as important to the
and
gameplay.
they glow. And I remember during our first impressions, the first time I came across it, I was like, Donnie, this thing is glowing. It has to be important. It has to mean something, but I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening. It wasn't until I was looking at a walkthrough, because I was just so damn sick of trying to figure out this puzzle, that I'd been like looping around the puzzle areas aren't big, the same little area for like an hour and a half. And so I'm looking at this walkthrough and I'm having to look at pictures. It's telling me like, okay, so go through this gate. And I'm like, there's not a gate over there. The gate's on the other side. And it's like, no, go through this gate. And I'm looking at the pictures. I'm like, oh my God, it's talking about these two fucking trees with a skull hanging between them. That's the gate. And once that clicked, I didn't struggle with any of the rest of like that area. And that mechanic really didn't get used a whole lot more outside of that area.
Right, and one interesting thing to note, because you're really referring to, I believe, the first time you get told about psychosis ending the game, right? The black stuff, and then you have to choose one of the gates to go through. I believe that you and I purposely went through two different gates, but we were always on the same puzzle, leading me to maybe believe that there's literally no choice there. Because you remember that, right? You were like, I went through the green door, and I was like, I went through the red door,
And
but we were always on the same puzzle.
that was another weird thing, is when you go back to that area, the other doors aren't color coded. And
Right.
also I felt like the very first time we went through that, there was more than two options.
Yeah, I thought there was like 3 or maybe even 4. It seems kind of weird.
I'd have to go replay the first part of that game, and unfortunately I don't have footage to go back through and look through, but that's my recollection of it, is there being more than two options. We purposefully chose different ones but ended up in the same spot.
Yeah, like I remember the first time you were talking about like the puzzle you were trying to do, and I was like, that seems very similar to what and anyways, it turned out we were in the same area, even though we had purposely selected two different doors. So leads me to wonder if there's even a choice to be made there, if it's just the illusion of choice.
I don't think there was. I think that this game straight up lies to you in multiple ways. I think the permadeath thing, straight up lie. I think that that illusion of choice was probably a lie as well, which I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. It's just a thing, to be aware of as you're playing. Like if you want to play through it a second time and go through a different gate when in that first
Right.
area, it's
There's
probably
literally
going to
no
lead to the
choice.
same result. Yeah. Yeah. After we get through that first area, you fight Valraven. He's just kind of a generic boss. At first, you're like, cool, a boss. Like, this is different. This is cool. But then you're going to fight that boss like as just a regular enemy 16 times over the course of the game.
Right.
So it kind of takes away from the coolness of like hitting a new boss battle. Right.
However, the first couple times, those guys are pretty dang spooky.
And it's kind of fun to learn their attack pattern and learn how to counter. It's better to dodge away.
I almost just wish there was more. Like the combat is flashy. I love that guard animation. It feels so satisfying to hit it, and it feels just as painful to miss a guard animation, and the game will punish you for it. But there's not very much variation in the combat after you meet 4 or 5 different enemies.
No, there's really not. And the way that the game kind of tries to hide that is as you progress, and we'll have clips that we're throwing up on screen to kind of demonstrate this as we're talking, but how they kind of try and vary up the combat a bit is they'll start sending multiple guys at you at once. And at first it's just the same like tree like I'm gonna call the first guy you encounter Tree Deer Man, right? And like you get attacked by like one of him, and then one of him becomes 3 of him, and
Right.
then you fight Valraven, and then after Valraven you get like Big Hammer Guy, and then after Big Hammer Guy you get like the version of him with the shield. But then they just start throwing like mixes of them at you.
Yeah,
like,
that's
different
about
mixes.
you just named all the enemies in about the span of 20 seconds.
They'll kind of vary the combination of those enemies. There's also like Big Axe Guy later on in the game, but like
I mean, you
had
literally fight. Yeah,
the
you fight
same
Hella and everything.
the same half dozen enemies throughout the game other than Hella, and you don't really fight her. Do you?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay, so let's move out off of Valraven's Keep. You go to Surtur's Domain, and this is the first area where I was like, all right, the puzzles, they were very simple. Basically, it was in this portion of the map. Again, this is the second boss that you're trying to fight to unlock the gate to hell. Well, the gate to the bridge to hell. um,
Right.
and this boss, he's kind of like the Norse, like fire giant, god, demon. I don't know Norse mythology too well, but you're basically progressing through to fight this boss, and the entire way the puzzles are, all right, you've got to, find the hidden symbol in the environment like you've always been doing, to unlock your path to find this like sacrificial altar that you then trigger, and it starts like a firestorm that you have to outrun, otherwise you're dead. Right.
Yep.
And this repeats the entire course of this area. So like, and it gets a little bit more complex each time. There might be enemies you have to fight while you're running from it. There might be like a maze that you have to kind of like navigate your way through, but more or less that's what it is. Right. So
Right.
you're
One of 3 enemies to defeat.
yeah, you're running through the fire and trying to line up puzzles in the environment. And I thought it was fine. Like none of these puzzles really stood out as being particularly difficult to me. And again, it's the same, like find the symbol in the environment. And there was one of those that I struggled with because it was where like up until that point it had been parts of the architecture or like trees for the most part. All of a sudden out of nowhere it was like there is just like a glowing symbol like in the ground, and I'll throw the clip of that up. But it's like that's it right there, that glowing symbol in the ground. Even though the last one that you did was a tree, this one's a glowing symbol just in the ground. That threw me off, and it took me a minute to find. But
Right. And it's like the game is almost more like an atmospheric walking simulator kind of experience, more focused on the story, I would say, because the some of the puzzles almost not, maybe not an afterthought, but it definitely feels like they weren't they were just included to give the player something to do and a reason to keep moving.
they almost felt like just a way to slow the player down so they didn't run through 10 minutes,
Right. The game could be done very quickly if it weren't for some confusing early puzzles.
And that let's turn to the story for a minute. So one of the aspects of this game that I actually really like, so you're Senua, right? You're playing as the character Senua.
Me? I'm Senua.
You're Senua. I'm Senua.
I am
If you're
Senua.
watching this, you were Senua. We are all Senua.
We are Legion.
Exactly. At the end, I mean, that's kind of the vibe I got, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But Senua is mentally disturbed. I don't know.
Senua's a little cuckoo.
But at the same time, it's kind of implied that it's like kind of a supernatural thing as well. It's weird. Like,
yeah, a little bit. So
the game, there's a line that it's trying to walk where it's like, this is about mental illness, but then also it's like, this is also not about mental illness. It's about like this gift that you have that people see as a curse. And it's
well,
like,
yeah. Your mother, I guess, also maybe a little implied that it's hereditary, because your mom, I guess, had the same. It's psychosis.
right.
It's said by the developers specifically later. I don't remember if it's in the game. I think that would be weird to kind of just try to drop in, hey, you have psychosis.
So here's the thing that makes me be like, okay, like I get that it's about that, but then constantly throughout the narrative, your spoiler alert, the boyfriend whose disembodied head you're carrying around, the guy you're trying to save this entire game, Dillian, throughout the course of the game, he's like, you have a gift, and that gift makes you an incredible fighter. Like you have an advantage over all of us. You are special. And last I checked, psychosis doesn't like turn you into a god tier fighter that can like see cues and like see the world differently in a way that like makes you, again, like literally a god tier fighter. You're killing like gods more or less in this game.
Not until you have your special sword, which we will get to.
Well, I think Valraven and Suitor are both,
I guess so. No,
technically
you're
gods
right.
or whatever. Yeah, like you are a freaking god tier fighter.
But then later you don't even have the ability to kill Hela.
Right.
Until you get the magic sword. Anyways, but we're off track. So at its base, the game is pretty much just you carrying around your your dead boyfriend's head, trying to, I believe, save his soul. First version of hell.
Yeah, that was the impression.
More or less. I think the idea is that, like, yeah. So I think Hela, who's more or less the devil, has like your boyfriend's soul, and you have to rescue him from her. But the story does not go where you would expect it to.
No, it doesn't at all. So let's move on to the Bridge to Hell. This was an underwhelming portion of the game. for me, because basically you've beat these two giant bosses. You're feeling good about yourself, right? You open up this massive imposing gate that like has been blocking your path. You start going across this bridge. There's a couple puzzles, like two or three, before you like hit the point where like the story kicks in again. But then when you do, it's immediately just like, there's the big bad, kick her ass. And you're like, can do. You start running at the big bad and she just bitch slaps you into the ocean. And
Yep.
you're like, all
He
right.
destroys you.
I thought this game was nearing its end because it's a cute little indie game. Nope, we've got a long way to go. You look at the walkthrough and see there's like, you're not even halfway.
Jeez.
But yeah, so that's what happens. Did you have any thoughts about the bridge sequence at all?
No, pretty much just I would just be repeating what you said. A little underwhelming, but it was kind of cool to see the big bad and really feel like, because so far you've defeated, like you said, Valraven and Suitor, I believe his name was, and so it really seems like you are invincible or all powerful, and your boyfriend's telling you have this crazy gift, and then you just get smacked into the ocean.
Well, and then you've also got, is his name Drew?
Pardon?
Is the other guy's name Drew, your kind of mentor? The one, he's the guy
Drew
who,
sounds about right.
for like the first half of the game, he's the one giving you the main beats.
Druth. Druth with a TH.
Gotcha. And then towards like the midsection of the game, it kind of switches over and Dillian starts like guiding you through the game a little bit more.
Right.
But Druth, he's got this, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. He's got probably my favorite part of the game outside of the combat, which is those little totems that you'd find throughout the course of the map where you just get like little nuggets of like this interpretation of Norse mythology. I freaking love those. I ate those up. Every single one of those I found, I would just like sit and listen and be like happy for 30 seconds before I went back to
before you realize that you're like deep into psychosis right now.
Yeah. But so yeah, you get knocked into the ocean, you get put back in your place, you lose your sword, a new voice is introduced to you, and his voice is the others. It does not fit in. He what would you describe him as? He's just kind of like an angry voice. He's the angry voice in your head, right?
Yeah, he's maybe
where the other voices are very much like, my interpretation of it is like it sounds like it's the same voice actress of Senua. So I interpreted it kind of as like the different pieces of her personality, kind of like
different parts of her. Yep.
Whereas this voice comes in and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, this is just like the angry shadow tiger or whatever from Aladdin that like is protecting the lamp, you know, like don't touch the lamp, like that.
Like, he actually says touch nothing but the lamp.
Touch nothing but the lamp.
Know your Aladdin lore.
Dude, I don't know my Aladdin lore, but like that's kind of what you reminded me of, is just like this big angry voice, and he's like one of the main voices that goes along with you the rest of the game. But he berates you. He's like, dude, you just got your ass kicked. You are nothing. You don't deserve. Like, just sit down and die. You lost your sword. How could you lose your sword?
And then it's time to upgrade your sword.
Right, and that's when Dillian hops in, and he's like, you know what, Senua, follow me. And for the next, I'd say, third of the game, you are chasing the blue like spirit body of your boyfriend through various trials and obstacles.
Very dead boyfriend. You literally have his head.
Basically,
carrying his head around.
He leads you on this long across this massive beach out to this tree, and the entire way you're getting little story nuggets. You find out that when Senua was a girl, she had a shit dad. Like, her dad's just a piece of shit.
Her dad who burned her mother alive.
Which, by the way, that's what we got from the Wikipedia. The story, I did not catch that part from the story. My interpretation, I'll give my interpretation of like the real story, that like I guess the game is you fighting to like move on past that story. I don't exactly understand like what the developer was trying to have us get at from this game, but I'll give my little interpretation of that and how it totally differs from like the Wikipedia thing. But anyway, you find out that like one day you left the house. You don't leave the house very often because your dad doesn't let you. You see this boy like practicing sword fighting under a tree, and you just pick up a sword and start like basically like copying him. And then one day he finds you guys hit it off, you become friends, you leave dad, you bang, And then it drops you. Then we're back to where we are, here, and we're at this tree that we've
In
been led
hell.
to by Spirit Dillion in hell.
Spirit dick boy.
You're walking into the tree and you're like hallucinating a bit, and you go to grab this sword, and it's like, fuck you, you're not ready for this sword. And
Yeah, you're not worthy yet, because of
you get,
course this game has to go on.
right. And so it kicks you out, and they're like, you got to complete these 4 trials of Odin so that you can grab that sword so you can go kick Helena's ass. Hela,
Right. So,
not Helena. But what one do you want to start with?
what are we doing?
I mean,
Just
I'll start with the
talking more about
labyrinth one. Yeah, let's start with that one, because so that was the first one that you go into, and basically it's a series of branching corridors, right? You walk into
Right.
one, you light a torch, and then you have to make a decision as to what direction you go, right? And I got super lost in this one because I just kind of went in, I lit the torch, saw it lit in another room, and was like, I'm gonna go in there now. And I kind of got way too far like into it before I realized there's got to be more to this than just like following the voices or whatever. If you backtrack all the way out to like the very first room, there's a symbol on the ground that is a symbol of a tree, and it shows the branches of that tree, and basically you follow the branches of the tree to
Right.
get out of this labyrinth. Did that throw you for a loop, or did you put 2 and 2 together?
It took me a hot minute.
Like I had to consult the guide, because like I
Oh,
say, it was like
none of that. I was just walking around kind of in frustration a little bit.
I would walk in and they'd be like, the little voices in my head would be like, something's different, pay attention, look around you, something's different. And I was like,
Right.
okay, what is different? And I couldn't tell what was different. It's the shields on the wall if you're stuck. I mean, hopefully you've beat the game. That's why you're listening to us ramble about it. But the shields on the wall are what's different. And basically, you're never supposed to go to the one with the same shield, even though,
Right.
yeah, it doesn't matter. You're not supposed to go to the one that you've already lit. So those are like the 2 things. But if you look at the tree, you see it's like right, left, right, right, or something like that. And that's the path that you take to get out. And that's what I did. And so after being stuck in it for like 45 minutes, I made my way through it, and it was a thing. And
That's almost a very old school Zelda-esque trial. Like
oh, for
I don't
sure.
know. Like the tree branches. Moving along, I found myself starting with the blindness trial, which I thought was pretty interesting. So you have no light. You've played, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So the lights just all don't exist. I wouldn't say they go out because they didn't exist in the first place, and you have nothing but big Dick Dillion's voice to guide you, and you have to really listen. Oh, another one that very gave me. Have you at least played Ocarina of Time?
Ocarina of Time? No, I haven't played Ocarina of Time. I've played A Link to the Past, I think is the one I've played.
Jesus. So anyways, at some point in Ocarina of Time, you have to find your way to the Lost Woods, and you have to listen to, there will be like 3 directions you can go in, and you have to listen to where the music is coming from the loudest. That was always good. But anyways, so in the blindness trial, it reminded me of that because you have to listen to, at first I believe it's like the wind whistling, and then there's like the water dripping.
So you start with just walking to the sound of the wind, right?
Yep.
And then you get to the water, you follow the river up, and then you get to some places where you're having to avoid like invisible enemies and shit.
Yeah. Well, you don't got your sword yet.
And you've got to like navigate through these houses in this darkness. And it was kind of nerve-wracking. I hate any game where you've got like an enemy that you cannot fight back against.
Right. Well,
Dead
that's
Space.
very horror-esque.
Yeah, it's like Mr. X in Resident Evil 2, or like Dead Space, when you get to that one point where you're being chased by the guy that you can't kill, and it's like, fuck this. It was kind of that, but these enemies are very much on a path unless you're making a bunch of noise, so you can kind of see where they're going. But eventually you make it out of it. Dillion's like, you're like, Dillion, I couldn't have made it without you. And Dillion's like, nope, you did it. You just needed a little bit of encouragement. And when we get to the actual story point, I'll explain to you why this game doesn't, like, why I don't understand the point of this game, because throughout all these trials, Dillion, he's like, that was all you. You persevered, you overcame, like you stuck it out. That was all you. I was just here to like be moral support. take with that what you will until we get to the end discussion about like the overall story. So then you move on to the swamp, right? You hit the swamp, and this
What
one,
are you doing in my swamp?
it brings back our favorite mechanic, those gates from earlier. But now we know how they work, and there's only the one type in this place. Like all the gates past Valraven's Keep, for the most part, are just this one type of gate, and it makes it even more frustrating that they like threw those couple like sneaky gates into the first section. But so you know, you like it's got this kind of interesting mechanic. You can line up the pieces to like make a broken thing become whole again, right?
Right.
Like that mechanic's explored here. Senua can sense that something's wrong with the water, but this isn't like the water in this swamp that you're going through right now, although it kind of is, because I feel like this is all just like in her mind. I'm not even sure we're actually like in hell anymore.
We might actually just be sitting in a dark room somewhere.
Like I feel like we might just be like backtracking through this village, because it's a village, very obviously a village that like the plague hit, because like that's what happened in this village. Senua's like, something's wrong with the water, we should get out of here, and everybody's like, you crazy, Senua. And then the plague hits and everybody's like, Senua, why did you do this to us? It's like, I can see how you might have gone a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But so like the mind games in the story start to really fuck with you, because at this point I'm like, are we actually in hell, or what's going on? Are we just fighting like our mind? I don't know anymore. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple of things, sorry, just showcased earlier by the blindness trial, and you're touching on the voices and everyone talking to Senua here. The sound design in the game, I know we're about to get sidetracked here. I'm driving us right off a cliff. The sound design in the game is pretty amazing.
Fantastic.
Wouldn't you say? Yeah. Like I played it with what am I wearing? Something Corsair something
Fancy
something
gamer ass headphones.
fancy gamer headphones. They got RGB. I don't know if it's on right now, but check it out.
That's how you know they're good. They got RGBs.
Yeah, it makes the RGB makes my headset go fast. But anyways, I guess it has that fake Dolby surround sound. I've never really turned it on before, but I did to play Senua's, and it was amazing, like legitimately spooky at some points, with the voices whispering to you and the enemies creeping by you, and especially in that blindness trial we were talking about, the soundscape with the wind howling and the water dripping is all very, very amazing.
No, I would say that not just the sound, the atmosphere in this game as a whole is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really well done when you're in like large open spaces. It doesn't feel like you're enclosed or anything. It really does feel like, you know, like the sounds are echoing forever and ever because you're in this huge cave. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I know it's been said a million times in different reviews, and we're like 2 years too late to this, but the sound design in this game is super well done. Making sometimes, you know, like I'm home alone playing Senua's, I gotta look behind me and see if see if someone's really there talking to me, whispering in my ear.
See if Hella's back there with her weird, like creepy ass half baby body.
See if she's hiding my boyfriend's dead soul behind me.
The sound design and the actual design, like you could show me a screenshot of this game and some of the environments in it, and I'd be like, that was made by Sony Santa Monica.
Yeah,
that was made by the God of War team. Like,
that's an Uncharted 4. Yeah.
Yeah, they like, you could have fooled me that this was a bigger, better. That's rude to say, because you can tell a lot of love went into this game, but like a lot of the stuff about this game makes you feel like it came from a bigger, better game.
Well,
right?
Not that Ninja Theory isn't a big developer,
but they're also
yeah. No, I get you.
Yeah, they're no BioWare, right? They're none of these huge like.
No, they're not a second party Sony company. They're not. No, I get what you mean.
But yeah, no, it's the design as a whole, like even the design of like mechanics, like the actual gameplay mechanics are solid. It just needs more variety and more, you know.
It needs more something.
Yeah, for sure. It could use a little bit of guidance. A tutorial of some semblance would be nice. Some button prompts every now and again would be great.
They'd go a long way.
So the tower trial, it was, I think, one of the more interesting ones. There's this mechanic where you look through these giant faces and it flips you in and out. Oh.
You took the swamp, mister. I've been preparing my thoughts on the tower chart.
I mean, go for it.
Yeah,
Can't
so
really
I'm just bugging you. So as Brandon was saying, yeah, you look through these big old masks, and you have to work with what the tower once was in the past and use that to solve puzzles in the present. Am I explaining that properly? That's more or less how I would have.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily see it as past. It could have been explained as that. The voices kept referring to it as like the light world versus the dark world. So that's what I was, but more or
Right.
less the
Okay.
same thing.
In my mind, the tower was fixed. It was just like, oh, this is how it was in the past. But maybe, yeah, that makes more sense. That it
Well,
could
who
have been
knows? With this game, it could be freaking both. It could be neither. It could be something completely different. Who knows?
all of the above.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. Referencing back, as I'm going to make 1,000 Zelda references in a puzzle game, to Majora's Mask. If you aren't familiar, you play. So Majora's Mask is on a loop of like 3 days. I am about to go on such a tangent. A loop of like 3 days, and there's lots of puzzles to solve involving like uh, this happens on the first day, and then you have to make sure that that happens on the first day. So X happens on the first day, so Y happens on the third day. You know what I mean? But it was really reminding me of like, so you leave this puzzle element there on the first day, and then when you come back on the third day, you can finally solve the puzzle. But anyways, so that's what it was kind
Right.
of reminding me of a little bit in that tower shard trial. So I thought it was pretty good though. That was an interesting mechanic to me. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that the puzzles, like this part of the game, was the puzzles at their smartest, in my opinion, because
Right.
you could chart your path like in a way that made sense and like felt intuitive, and you kind of felt a little Sherlock Holmesy putting it together.
Yeah,
You
for
know?
the first time I felt in the game, things were actually telegraphed really well. Like we were struggling with the gates back in Valraven's Keep or whatever.
This
But
trial was, I thought the puzzles were very smart.
yeah, from the very first puzzle, you that the was it a bridge or something, and the bridge is broken, and then you put your face into that mask, and now you're suddenly in the light world or whatever, and now the bridge is fixed. You can walk across the bridge. So I thought that was a really good way to introduce us to how this mechanic was going to work, how the puzzles were going to be in this area. You know what I mean?
Right, and there was a symmetry to it too. So like to get to the masks, you're like walking out on the bridge, you're like, shit, the bridge is out. What
Yep.
are those masks? Oh, I can knock this little bridge over to get to the masks. When you get
Yep.
over there, you see on the other side, there's one of those bridges again. So then when you go through the other world, or to the other world, and the bridge is like the main bridge is fixed, you go up around and you're like, all right, I should go kick down that other bridge so that
In
when I
the
go back through the other world, I can go through it. And
right.
it was all just very well like presented to you, and it was like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
I
it just felt
thought
like
the
they were done
puzzles were
so
really
much
well
better.
done. Yep.
Mhm.
We're doing the Discord thing where we just talk over each other over and over again. We're just
Yeah,
excited about the tower trial, you know?
it honestly, like, this was the part of the game where I was like, this is what the puzzle should have been. This is how they
Yeah.
should have been. Like, really,
That.
all the trials I thought were better than, like, none of, like, some of them weren't like groundbreaking gameplay or anything, but it was nice to have variety. You
And they
know?
were all interesting. Yeah, they had
Yeah.
like a theme and they kind of stuck to it, but evolved on the premise of what it was.
And none of them overstayed their welcome either, except for
Nope.
the
Yep.
labyrinth because I got stuck. Like, they were all just
No, they're
good
all like,
little.
15, 25-minute little puzzles, little offshoots.
Yep, and they just were all designed. It was the great. I think that the trials of Odin are, outside of the combat, are the best part of this game.
Yep, I'd give that a big fat agree. So, we're starting to push towards the ending. The ending of this game?
So after all the trials,
You've completed the 4 trials. You now have your magic god-killing sword.
oh, we forgot about that part. Yeah, once you complete the trials, you're able to pull that sword out of the tree. You've got your glowing blue sword.
And then you wake up.
So, Sea of Corpses, you wake up. Basically, you are Moses. You've got the Red Seas parted before you, and they're literal Red Seas with like
Blood.
arms,
Literal blood.
blood and arms like coming out from the sides trying to get you. And this is the most combat heavy part of the game. There are, as far as I'm aware, there are no puzzles in this little
No, it
stretch of the game.
is no puzzles. And I looked up the name after you mentioned them earlier. Those little bits of lore are called. I was just looking
Lore
at it.
stones.
Lore stones. That's the one. Thank you. Yeah. So no puzzles, no lore stones, and
There's a couple lore
lots
stones
of
in there.
fighting.
I did find a couple lore stones in there, but tons of fighting.
Sea of Corpses walkthrough. There are no lore stones to find in this
That's
area.
bullshit. I'm gonna pull up the footage and prove them wrong. There's a lore
Please
stone
prove
in
me
there.
wrong. Please prove me
I'm
wrong.
convinced there's a lore stone in there. Nah, literally all combat. And actually, I can't believe I'm saying this. The combat overstayed its welcome here. It went on too
He's
long.
gonna say it. I'm gonna say that the combat stayed too long.
All right, Donnie, borderline borrowing racist jokes and turn them into game jokes.
Dude, that's what being an epic gamer is all about. Sea of Corpses. You're surrounded by corpses. You're surrounded by blood.
Basically,
you have your magic sword, and the combat is too long. That's it.
So after this, you get to Helheim, right? So the Sea of Corpses. You're right. That's when you wake up because you were like all downtrodden. You wake up in the Sea of Corpses, right? Is that how that goes?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you fucking bust your way out of there because you've decided, you know what? I want to live. I'm gonna do the mission. I'm gonna kill the guys, do the things, and then after you bust your way out of there, you end up in Helheim. Finally, right?
We're finally here for the second time.
This is about where I stopped playing.
Oof.
So I got to the point where you get to this point where it's like, all right, if you're in the darkness, the bad guy is going to get you.
Right.
And so you like running from light spot to avoid like the basically like gatekeeper to Helheim or something. I don't know exactly what his role is. I dropped into a tunnel. I walked through some water. My torch went out. I found a torch again. I did one of those symbol puzzles where you like find the symbol in the environment, and then I quit. And then I just watched the ending from here. So Donnie, how was Helheim?
you summed it up pretty well. I picked up where literally you had to walk a few more feet and fight a boss, and then it's Hella time.
So the first time you encounter Hella, I was looking. You look like the bad guy from Moana. Like you look like a baby-faced version of like giant lava monster from Moana.
Isn't the bad guy from Moana just nature?
Yeah, but you stole nature's heart, man. Did this turn into Moana? Did this switch from like freaking?
It's just Norse Moana.
But yeah. So hella, what happens here? So I know from what I watched. Basically, you get to this point where like you're fighting through a couple waves of like enemies to get to Hela, right? But eventually it hits a point where like it's just infinite enemies spawning. Like you cannot get to her because it's just physically impossible. They throw too much at you.
And like me, whenever going gets tough, you just give up. Yeah, literally the only way to you don't even fight Hela, right? So you just fight all of her bad boys. However, first of all, you do have to refight the 3 bosses of the game, like Sutir, Valraven, and Fenrir. That's what I was talking about earlier. I was like, is this the first or second fight with Fenrir? It's the first fight of Fenrir. Okay, so in Norse mythology, Fenrir is like a giant wolf, right? I thought that was the thing. And he's the beast. The voices keep telling you if you go into the darkness, the beast will get you. The beast is stalking you, and that's what Fenrir is. He's the beast who is following you, and you fight him the one time. And then so the second time, the bosses are all actually kind of interesting. They're like Fenrir specifically sticks out to me. He's like, they can like swap out for each other, or like their attacks are kind of different. I don't know. They're kind of like zombies of themselves, you know what I mean? Like you already killed them, right? So I guess it just makes sense. Yeah, like the dead version of them. So their mechanics are a little different. They can switch to be each other or whatever, but I don't know. But no, it's more or less the same fights as earlier, but now sometimes there's 3 of them. So like you were talking earlier, they try to mix up the combat by giving you not 1 enemy, but 3 enemies.
Right.
You know? So finally, Hela, who isn't actually a boss. She is just Hela.
She's
and
you? Question mark.
I don't want to think about it too much. Anyways, as you get to the end of the game, she just summons endless spawn waves of enemies to fight you, and no matter what, you just you just have to give up.
So let me just say one thing real quick. There is the dodge mechanic in this game is OP. The dodging in this game is OP as fuck. You can dodge straight into an enemy guy, but as long as you're in like that dodge like animation, at least on the difficulty I played, I don't remember which one it is, but like as long as you were in dodge animation, you cannot be hit.
This ain't no Dark Souls.
So like with this end fight, like I died maybe once in actual combat throughout the course of the game. Like this ending fight, I would have just been stuck there forever, dodging my way to like eternity, because every time I'd get damaged enough to be like almost dead, I'd just start dodging like crazy until all my health was back. So like this mechanic would be so freaking frustrating, because I'd be like, what the hell am I supposed to do forever as like these endless waves come, until eventually I got like, they got a lucky hit in and murdered me when I like failed to dodge.
Right. Well, it's kind of telegraphed, unlike most things in the game. The voices in your head just keep telling you, they're like, give up, Senua. Just let it end. You know what I
The
mean? Like
voices are doing that the entire game. They're telling you to turn around, run away, don't do it. That's scary in there. Don't do this thing. Like,
okay, well, they
why do
straight
we
up
listen to
just
them at
tell
the
you to
end?
die. They just straight up just tell you to give up and die. So
That's not the first time they've done that this game. Are you telling me we can end the game earlier on by giving up? Can we
by
end
just
this?
dying? Imagine if you could just end the game by dying. Well, according to the developer, you can just die by.
But according to what we've read, that's a straight up lie, and you can die like 80 times, and the permadeath state will never get triggered. So
Boring.
But
So
yeah,
you
you
give up, and you get a cutscene. Why don't you tell me about this cutscene, Brent?
So this cutscene is super weird. Senua goes in and out of like 17 different emotions. Like first she's just super sad because she failed. Then she's angry. Then she's kind of like taunting Hella, like just kill me if you're not gonna like give me Dillian back, kill me. And then she's like, actually, you know what? If you fix Dillian, I'll fight for you when what's Norse end of the world.
Ragnarok.
When Ragnarok comes, I'll fight for you. Like she's going
Yeah,
through all this
I think
different,
she
like
even says she'll be like her slave warrior.
she's going through all these bargaining things. She's like trying to barter and bargain, and then she's like yelling and she's crying and she's laughing. She's like all over the emotional spectrum.
She's
And
going through the
then
5 stages of grief, dude.
and then Hela just stabs her with your own sword and kills you. And then you're laying on the ground bleeding out, and freaking Dillian, your lover, like magically appears like on the other side of like the ground, but he's half naked, by the way. He's totally naked.
Yeah,
Like
pretty
he's
hot.
dude shirtless.
Big dick Dillian.
Very clean shaven. But he's like just telling you about how like it's cool. You did your best. Like he's just being supportive. Classic Dillian. Like,
Classic Dillian.
like you gotta give up on the bad to see the good. Like you gotta let go. Like you gotta take the good with the bad. You gotta. I don't exactly understand what the moral of the story was, but
and
then Hela comes walking over to the edge, like burning ass Hela, and Senua starts talking.
Yeah.
And the camera pans down, and then it pans back up, and Hela turns into Senua, this giant ass person. All of a sudden is regular ass person sized. And then that regular ass person starts talking with the wrong voice.
She looks right at the camera and
she's like,
and asks you to come on the next adventure with her.
Straight up, that happened.
And then, and then the voices in her head wish you goodbye.
And I don't know what to make of this.
I don't understand.
So the entire game, I'm like, okay, so it's meant to be a take on like mental illness, right? And
Yep.
Dillian, like you're always wanting to give up. The voices are always telling you to give up. Dillian is like your cheerleader. He's like, don't give up. Don't give up.
He's
like,
cheering for you. He loves you.
You can do it. I believe in you. Like,
carry his head around hell.
Even though in the real story, which by the way, here's my interpretation of the real story. My interpretation was abusive dad led to depressed mom, led to kind of emotionally fucked up Senua. That was like my interpretation of the story. Totally wrong, apparently. Apparently, mom deranged, like lunatic, gets burned at the stake by dad, so he's not too hot himself, which leads to fucked up Senua. Either way, the entire game, I'm like, all right, so this is about like overcoming like abuse.
So Senua's mother also had psychosis, but she saw it as like a gift, like as a good thing. But Senua's dad was like crazy religious, I guess. I don't know where this is being pulled from, honestly.
But the weird thing is in the game, it straight up tells you it's a gift. There's certain points where Dillian in the game, he's like, you have abilities that none of us have. Like you are an amazing warrior because of this gift, and like we need you. Like that's just a thing that they say in the game. Like that's why I'm like, I cannot figure out if this is meant to be like overcoming like mental illness, like persevering, just sticking it out, like human ingenuity. Like it sucks, but you can do it. Like pep talk type game, like moral to the story, or like.
And I think that's why. at launch, it kind of got like received both praise and people kind of didn't like it for its portrayal of mental illness. I think that's kind of the reason, is because in the end, it feels like the mental illness psychosis thing kind of didn't matter.
When you get to the end and the voices in your head are like, they're telling you to give up. And again, they've been doing that this whole game. So why all of a sudden giving up is like the right answer is beyond me, because this whole game, it's been like, don't give up. You've been through all this shit. Don't give up now. Like, because it would make all that shit you've been through mean nothing. But then it ends up not mattering at the end anyway.
No, you
But
just die.
it is such a crazy message to me that if this game is about like mental health and mental, like, I don't know about you, I've got people in my close family who struggle with a variety of mental health issues, right?
Right.
And the idea that the answer at the end of like, after all this suffering and all this bullshit that like
Was
you've gone
just
through,
give
to
up.
give up, like that is such a weird message to me. That's like, I cannot wrap my mind around it. And I honestly, like, because my interpretation of the story was wrong, because like that's such a weird like change of like moral of this, like the moral of the story changed like right at the end. It went from like don't give up to like give up.
Yeah,
And
so I think that was kind of like why, like I was saying, why it was both praised. Maybe the people who praised it didn't play through the whole game, and the people who were saying that it wasn't really a good portrayal were the ones who actually finished the game.
well, and it's weird that
Because
like
that was that was a ride.
I can see even if they didn't play through the entire game, why they'd be like, this doesn't make sense as the portrayal, because again, it's doing it. Dillian straight up tells you like you have a gift, you are special, and you are like something like not you're just like special because I love you. You're special. There's like something supernatural, magical about you and this gift that you have, and it's I can't wrap my brain around it. It is such a mind fuck, this game.
Yeah, it's a little weird. So, what overall, as a package, as a game, what did we think of Senua's Sacrifice?
So it's worth playing for sure. I'm gonna finish it still, especially now that I've heard that there's basically like Senua's version of like Sif from Dark Souls in it. I want to fight a doggo. If you go into it knowing that like some of the puzzles are just bullshit, like I would have a walkthrough handy with this game.
Right.
Have a walkthrough handy, know what you're getting into. I'd probably play on a low difficulty. I can't remember if it has difficulty options. If it does, I'd play on a low difficulty. I'd try and get to as many of those lore stones as you can, because I enjoyed the shit out of every single one of those. Every single time it was like story time with Truth. I'm in.
Yeah.
The atmosphere is great. The combat is great, but it gets pretty samey. The
The
puzzles,
sound design is worth experiencing almost by itself. Like if you gave me like a half-hour demo to just listen to of Senua's, I'd be I'd be pretty into that.
there's so much to like about this game. And there's just like the sameness of it, like towards the end, the puzzles and the combat get pretty samey. The story goes batshit off the rails. And I'm still not convinced, like my interpretation, your interpretation, Wikipedia's interpretation, like I don't know that any of us actually know the story of Senua.
Right. Who actually experienced this game?
Right. Like I don't know, it's worth playing. That's what I got. It's not a bad game. It's not a great game. It has great elements.
I'd say so. Yeah, the
That
sound
make it
design and
worth
the
experiencing.
visuals are great. The puzzles and some of the game design itself, not so great.
But the thing about that is they have even the bad elements have their moments, you know?
Yep. No, some of
So
the puzzles in there were great. Some of the ways, and the towers that we were talking about, those trials that we were talking about, some of the game design in those trials, the way they telegraphed the puzzles to you was great. But overall, as a package, those things weren't
right.
as great.
Yeah, I don't think I could give it a rating as like good, bad. I can just say it's worth experiencing. I think
Oh, I've been thinking about my rating for the last couple minutes, and I've come up with it here.
let's hear it.
I give it 4 cashews out of 5
4 cashews out of 5. Why cashews and why 4 or 5?
because I just ate some cashews.
Dude, that's fair. So if you made it this far, thanks for hanging out with us. This was Senuas Sacrifice. Go play it if you haven't. We've spoiled it for you, but go play it. Now that you've heard
I'd
us,
say the experience is still worth it.
yeah, I don't know that there's replayability to it. I would love for someone to like do a supercut of just all the cutscenes and stuff. If that's on YouTube, I'm gonna watch that.
It's definitely on YouTube. You know it's on YouTube.
Like again, the game has its moments where it tricks you into thinking this game is something very special, and it's worth experiencing.
Yeah,
But
I'd say so.
yeah. So now that I've said that 18 times, we will see you guys in the next week's book club. Hopefully, we're going to be playing Moonlighter.
Yeah, let's play some Moonlighter.
So if you have the Humble Bundle, the Humble Monthly, pick up Moonlighter, and we'll play through that. We'll meet you back here next week, and we'll just do the same thing. We'll talk through Moonlighter. If you have any comments, criticisms, concerns, any of that stuff, put it in the comment section down below.
Qualms, queries, unexpected pregnancies.
We want we want to grow and do better, and we want this to kind of become a community thing. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you actually did play through the game with us and made it through this video, let's hear your thoughts. I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments about what the fuck we just experienced there. So also hit us up on Twitter at your hit point. We've got a website, thehitpoint.tv. What else, Donnie? Can you think of anything else?
I just want the people listening to know that I love them all. I tell you this at the end of every video. If you are listening to this, I love you. Thank you.
For real.
And have a good week.
Yeah. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you in next week's book club.